Welcome back, everyone, to the Rialto Theater. This is Rubber City Reviews. I am Nick Mancuso of Does It Suck? Also Made to Motivate podcast every Wednesday and Friday. Make sure you check that out. To my left is Jesse Unk, also on Made to Motivate podcast, the sports edition. He is a sports guy. To his left is Chris Kessinger, Facebook review aficionado, film freak. Go check him out.
Random milk cartons.
Yes. And then to my far left is Evan Pohl. Your page is the preview review. Awesome reviews on there. Check them out as well. We are back in the Rialto Theater, guys. Beautiful theater. Thank you guys for having us again. Wonderful bar as well. We have our drinks. And we have an awesome audience. Guys, give yourself a round of applause if you're here. Fantastic. I think there's a good amount of people here. This is the most people that we've had, so it's awesome. Thank you guys for coming out and joining us today. We are going to get into some movies from the past couple months. You know, the holiday movies have been kicking in, so we're getting our Oscar movies starting to come out. You know, our good quality movies everybody looks forward to throughout the year.
Quality in
quotation marks. So just a quick rundown of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about those movies such as The Irishman, Ford vs. Ferrari, Lighthouse, just to name a few. And then we're going to get into our lists of our best movies of the year, worst movies, and then kind of some surprises.
Decade.
Oh, yeah, of the decade. Yeah, what am I thinking? I forgot.
Decade's ending, man.
Yeah, it is the decade.
Damn.
So that's why it was so hard to narrow it down, because we had so many movies to choose from. Yep. And then just kind of discuss what else comes up on conversations. You know how the show goes. It's not really structured that much. We just like to have fun. So getting into it, I think we're going to start with The Irishman.
Yep,
just because big Oscar contender, Martin Scorsese. It did debut on Netflix, and then it did have a small run in the theaters as well, just to make it, Oscar eligible. I haven't gotten a chance to see it because it's 3.5 hours long, and I just haven't got a chance to sit down and.
You could have just done it incrementally. Over an hour,
but I don't want to, because that's not how it was intended to watch, and I really want to watch it fully through. And all three of you guys have seen it though, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so. No particular order. What did you guys think? What did you guys not like? What are your thoughts?
I thought that it was good. It definitely doesn't feel like it's 3.5 hours long. It feels long, but it feels more like in that 2.5 hour range. You can definitely sit down and it doesn't feel like it's bearing down on you. The story's really good. I didn't know a lot about Jimmy Hoffa and the whole story to begin with, so I didn't go in with a lot of interest wanting to learn the story, or I hadn't read the book. But it entertained me the entire way through. The characters, the acting was fantastic. They've got a great, it's De Niro, it's Pesci, it's, who am I forgetting? There's tons of people. Pacino.
Ray Romano.
Yeah, Ray Romano.
Hey.
No, but it was good. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I'd have to, just to kind of piggyback off what Jesse said, this movie really, to me, kind of feels like the evolution of Scorsese as a director. It's really all of his finest traits and all of his finest nuances that he uses behind the lens. Everything's brought along, as well as the cast, like you said, is brought along. Yeah. Some of the positives to me were, I'm actually one of the few people that didn't have a problem with the de-aging process of the movie.
I didn't either.
I felt the de-aging itself worked. It was just the elements around it. The hands are still wrinkly. The walks are still looking like 70 to 80-year-old men. So it kind of subdues that whole gimmick. That was really the biggest negative I had. As far as positives go, you're right. It does kind of whisk by. There's some things I wouldn't mind cutting, maybe, 20 minutes here. Just lessen. Don't cut the scene, but lessen the scene.
Right.
But for me, I gave it a 7 out of 10 overall.
I mean, I personally agree overall. There are a lot of things I love about it. I think the performances are all fantastic. De-aging didn't really bother me all that much, aside from maybe a couple key moments. Production design is off the charts good. Yeah. And I think it's fairly well paced, but I do have to admit that the first hour of the movie went by it was pretty slow to start. And I think that the movie didn't really need to be 3.5 hours long, in my personal opinion. I think it could have been cut down to 3, and it would have made it more streamlined and a bit more accessible, which is why I originally watched it the whole way through without stopping. And then I was like, oh gosh, I want to retry this. And then I watched it again over a course of hours. I'm like, this is a lot better. It's much more digestible.
More tight.
Yeah, much more tighter. Yeah. I personally liked it a lot. Wait, so am I going with the appease the predestined?
Out of 10.
All right, then fine.
0.246.
What emoji would you give it?
I give The Irishman a 7.5 out of 10. I don't think it's. I can see why it's an Oscar contender. I don't think it's a masterpiece.
Do you guys have any issues with them with like movies like this being released on Netflix? Because I know a lot of people say it takes away from the cinematic experience, and you could see it in theaters, although it was a limited release, so you really had to get there right whenever that window was open. But do you guys see any issues with that?
I personally don't. I think there are certain movies that deserve to be seen on the big screen, like the upcoming 1917, but apparently that's just going to be limited release in California and New York, I believe, which sucks because I really want to see it. But I think Irishman, yeah, I'd say that's a movie that you could see both on the big screen and on the small screen. It wouldn't take away too much.
Yeah, and I'm not here to ruin Marvel fans' days or anything, but I'm going to quote Scorsese here for a minute.
Oh, no.
He mentioned that movies are starting to become sort of a spectacle, in terms of being released to theaters. And in that regards, I don't think The Irishman needs to be seen in theaters, and especially the fact that who wants to sit for 3.5 hours in an uncomfortable seat unless yeah.
That's why I didn't see it.
Preach.
Even a recliner, you're going to fall out and, drop your popcorn, but that's just my opinion. I don't think this needs to be seen. I think it's okay every once in a while for a movie to get a Netflix release.
Yeah, I feel
I
so.
disagree with both of you.
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm curious to hear your thought.
I managed a movie theater for 7 years. I know that I think you're right when you say that this doesn't need to be seen on a big screen, but I think that it opens a door for a cash grab from companies to not have to go through that production, pay those costs to get it out to all the theaters.
That's a good point.
And I don't want to see us get to a point in the future where we do have to watch a Marvel movie on Netflix at home.
You mean Disney
instead
Plus?
of-
Yeah.
Like, I think that things like, we get these great shows like Mandalorian, and I'd like to see more production go into shows like that for Netflix and for Disney Plus and things like that. But when it comes to actual films, movies, big time movies like that, I think you need to have a theater open because that's just classic cinema that I don't want to see die. And I think it opens the door for that.
I totally mistook. I'm sorry. I totally mistook with that. Basically, what I meant was just spectacle movies like the Marvels,
Right.
the action-packed genres. Those movies should be seen in theaters. Something like this, I don't know if it's a necessity.
So what you're saying is that you want to see the quality of like HBO in a lot of other streaming services?
If you're going to go big for them like that, I think that's fine. It's just when it comes to movies, make them go into the theaters at least partially because I just don't want to see that trend continue that we've already started going down and then eventually they become extinct just like drive-ins and things like that in the past have.
Yeah.
I agree. Speaking of...
I got two little nuggets.
Yeah.
I did struggle with the de-aging, mostly because of what he pointed out. Like you could, these guys are old, right? And you can tell.
Yeah.
And just
They're 40 years old, but they're still slouching around 2 miles an
100%,
hour.
yeah. And then the other thing, the cinematic use of the hit was extraordinarily unique in this movie. Like over the years, hits have gotten very boom, boom, guns or blah, blah, blah. This was short barrel, straight to the point, back of the head, walk up on the guy on the street, bop, bop, and it sounds like a real gun, and he just walks away.
Yeah.
And it was they did that repeatedly, and you made, to me, that was extraordinarily more realistic than normal hits that we've seen in all these other movies.
Doesn't glorify violence in the way that we're used to from Scorsese.
Right. It kind of reflects on the consequences of it, which I really like.
Very well.
Speaking of movies that deserve to be seen in the theater, how about we go ahead and talk about Ford v Ferrari?
Okay.
Because I think that is something that definitely needs to be seen in the theater, especially for the full experience, because I thought it was really damn good. Sound design is impeccable. Like, you really feel immersive, especially during the last scene, the final race. Performances are all really good. I think I'm kind of in the same boat I am with The Irishman. I think it's a bit too long. But for the most part, I don't think it didn't drag for me, certainly. I really liked it a lot.
I'm kind of with Evan in this boat in terms of the performances are solid. I would like to see Bale get some Academy recognition.
Yeah.
The sound design is beautiful. The shot composition is in and out of these cars, swerving the same way that these race cars do. My only negative for the movie is it's called Ford versus Ferrari, and we get nothing from the point of Ferrari. And that to me is a bit of a disappointment. Kind of makes it feel like an American propaganda film.
I didn't get a chance
I
to
didn't
see
get a
this
chance
one.
to see it either. It's on my list.
Okay.
But it was definitely high up there because, like you said, it looked like it was shot just so well. And whenever it comes to, either space movies or racing movies, those are the ones that are going to win the sound design.
Absolutely.
More times out of 10. And I don't know if there was a space movie this year that
Yeah,
really
that's true.
mean, aside
yeah,
from
Ad Astra, but
Astra, yeah.
but yeah, I think
I was gonna say Star Wars, but maybe I don't know. I personally give Ford v Ferrari a 8 out of 10. Really liked it.
I'm in the same boat. 8 out of 10 for me too.
all right. And then let's switch gears a little bit. Speaking of a car movie, but go to Frozen 2 that came out. Really big sequel to Disney's, blockbuster hit of Frozen. I didn't see this one either. I wasn't going to see this until it came out on Disney Plus. But Jesse, did you see it yet?
I did not. I'm going with my wife to see it probably sometime in the next week or two. So plug your ears for spoilers.
If you haven't seen it, we are going to probably get into some spoilers and some talk. So
if by big sequel you mean unnecessary sequel, then you hit the nail on the head.
Cash grab sequel.
Yes, exactly.
So if you guys would like to dive into Frozen 2.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start then. I don't think it's a bad movie by any means. I think the animation is gorgeous. The songs are, honestly, I don't think they're ear bleeding by any means. Like, Let It Go, if I heard that 10 times, I'd be like, by the 9th time, I'd be going crazy. But this one, I could actually see myself listening to the soundtrack aside from one song, which I'll let Chris talk about that one.
As Evan called it, a boy band song straight out of the 90s. For me, honestly, Frozen 2 is an all right film if you forget everything you learned in Frozen 1. And the reason I say that is because characters are making judgment decisions that make no sense whatsoever with the personalities and demeanors that we've come to understand. The animation is good, yes, but there are certain times where the landscape in terms of their consistency, just the backdrops, they lack the detail of the first film, which amazingly was made 6 years ago.
I like how you bring up the characters, because sometimes the characters are barely even in the movie.
That's the thing too. This movie, you could make this completely with Elsa and nobody else, and you would lose nothing in translation. You could cut every single character out of this movie except Elsa, and you'd be fine.
You could make it another short, just like Olaf's Big Adventure or something like that.
Oh yeah, the 30-minute short. Yeah.
You guys are ripping it apart.
I'd rather watch that than this again.
It's so funny because we go from like Oscar movies all the way to like Frozen 2, and we're like tearing Frozen apart more than we did
making Disney kids cry on the 330 to go.
It's so funny to me though.
Yeah, but I think
we do that because we hold Disney to those high standards.
We do,
right? So we want a really good thought out storytelling movie. We want impeccable animation. And anything less than that when it comes to Disney, I think it's fair game to pick it apart.
Yeah, and this movie's just not that. It doesn't live up to that quality, but from a company that was built on originality, on classics. And this, I just don't see this becoming a classic. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's kind of mediocre. I give Frozen 2 a 5.5.
5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of snooze fests, did you guys see Dr. Sleep? Transitions are on point today.
Yeah, you're having fun with those. I did see Dr. Sleep, and I really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah?
I think this movie will satisfy all three fans that it's aiming for. Fans of the original Stanley Kubrick classic, fans of King's work, and fans of the book.
Before you get into it, if you want to give people a little bit of background of what Dr. Sleep is, just because I don't know if it's a really... well-known movie, so if you can kind of give some background of what the movie is first.
So essentially, it is a sequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which came out in the 1980s. Honestly, one of the best psychological thrillers. I don't know if I can necessarily call it a horror film, but definitely a really damn good film. A masterpiece, honestly. But it is a sequel that follows the main character after he grew up. It's the Danny from the original Shining, and he's now grown up, and he now help me out here.
Well, basically, he's growing with his powers, and as time goes on, he's finding that he's getting a lot of connections from other people with the Shining themselves, some good, some bad, and he has to learn to grow with that and struggle with the same alcoholism that paralyzed his father.
Right, and...
Just so we know, that's the kid on the
Shining
big wheel
Yes.
that sees.
Red Rum.
It's that famous scene where the kid goes on the big wheel, right?
Yeah.
And sees the twins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this movie is, for me, in terms of quality, kind of divided into 3 acts, because I think the first act is okay. It's not great. It kind of establishes the story. It's a good setup. And I'm like, okay, I'm in for the ride. Second act is really, really good. It has some very mesmerizing visuals that really kind of felt immersive, kind of like how it was in Ford v Ferrari. The performances were all really good, especially like the villain played by
Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, she honestly is one of my favorite villains of the year. She's really good in this. And the last act, it's fan service, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have to agree. The fan service thing was what I was going to bring up. Sometimes you can get lost with an original film if you don't. What should I say? If you don't nuance it enough to where it feels needed. And that was the case with the imagery here. We get a lot of the examples of the Shining Hotel itself, the Stanley, but it's not really necessary to where we're heading in this direction. This is this kid's story in Dr. Sleep, not so much everything that happened in the previous movie. It's a completely different texture of film, as you mentioned, completely different tonally. And from my view, just some of that fan service, it sometimes loses itself trying to be its own thing.
I mean, it literally uses some of the same, well, not some of the same, it literally copies some of the same shots
Very much.
from The Shining. I just think that that's kind of dumb, in my opinion.
And to me, when you're trying to bring in a new actor to play Jack Nicholson's part and Shelley Duvall's part, that's when the obviousness starts kicking in and you start realizing this is anything but Jack Nicholson. Like these people don't look anything like them. They don't play it with half as much dimensions. And that's for me is where the grade kind of sags a little bit. It's still a 7 out of 10 because Mike Flanagan as a director managed to not only make a film that satisfies the Shining fans, but also satisfies fans of the Dr. Sleep book itself, which is completely different from The Shining.
I was going to ask you based off of that, because it's well known that Stephen King hates The Shining.
Yeah.
He thinks that they took it completely out of context. They changed things that he didn't want changed. They said that Jack Nicholson's character is completely wrong. He goes about things the wrong way.
Yeah.
This is also based off of a book that he just came out with. Are there continuity errors? Does this stick to the book that ruins things from the last one, or is it more of a sequel to the movie, or is it more of a sequel that truly adapts the book?
I think it rides the fine line between both. Like, I don't hate the ending by any means. I think it has a nice, satisfying arc towards the end of it with some very creepy imagery as well. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't sag my grade too much. I give it an 8 out of 10 as well. But I do think that it rides a nice fine line between pleasing both sides. I mean, I know that Stephen King himself said this was, I think, redemption. I think that was what the word he used.
And it feels like it too. It stinks of it completely all over. Like that, this is a way to get back at Kubrick's initial vision.
Yeah.
It's pretty ambitious too, because that's such an iconic movie.
Oh yeah.
And so it could have went either, as it did pretty successfully, or it could have been complete garbage and almost tarnish the original Shining.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's honestly the best parts of this movie are when it stands alone by itself, when it doesn't require the Shining.
Yeah. That speaks volumes.
And I think that Mike Flanagan, the director, has really established himself as a really good horror director. He did Hush, he did Gerald's Game. He made a sequel to Ouija, a movie that I hate, and I actually like the sequel. So he's really good, and I think he did a good job with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So another movie that is an original movie with an original screenplay is Knives Out.
Yes.
Completely original movie by Rian Johnson, who most recently I think did Star Wars
Last
Jedi.
Oh no, we're not getting into that.
Tell us how you really feel.
It's an original like whodunit type movie, like Murder on the Orient Express type feel. Clue is a very good, kind of headspace to be in. What do you think about that? We all got a chance to see it. Chris, what did you think about it?
I love this movie. Left, right, top to bottom, everything about it is damn near perfect for me. The mystery itself is hard to predict. You might get pieces of it, but it's not who did it. It's more why they did it and how they did it. That's more important. The cast, phenomenal all around. My girl, Anna... I'm drawing a blank. Anna de Armas, great call. Yeah, she was in Blade Runner 2049. I love that she gets a leading role here, and she does great with it. She really is the most heartfelt character. But for me, Daniel Craig easily steals the show.
Oh man,
what do you guys think?
I'm right with Chris. I thought it was damn near flawless. My only flaw is I think that there are a couple of characters that are known used only as a joke or as a clue to the overall mystery. I think they could have done a slightly better job with that. But aside from that, it's really funny, really interesting, highly engaging, highly enjoyable performances across the board.
Yeah.
It's a really fun time at the theater. I go ahead and give Knives Out 9 out of 10. I really liked it.
Yeah, we were in the theater. There was nobody in the theater when we bought our tickets, and when we got there, me, Jesse, my fiance, and then Ryan also went and saw it, and it was like almost a packed theater in a really small theater.
Oh yeah,
and we saw it last night, so it's in its release, still in its
fresh
3 or 4 week release.
Yeah.
So the audience was engaged the whole time. Like they were laughing and they were like gasping and they were like everybody was like talking, but it was like to the point where they were trying to figure it out with their friends.
Yeah.
So it wasn't loud talking; it was
Okay.
kind of like whispering. So I was okay with that because we were kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But that's fun. Like I don't remember the last time I had like a fun time at the movie like that because I couldn't, like you said, I could kind of piece together a little bit of what was going on, but I didn't know why.
It
or
subverted
how.
your expectations.
Exactly. And then I don't know the actor's name. It was the dad of Ransom.
Christopher Plummer?
Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
performance
he's
from
a
him.
great actor in general.
And
Yeah.
it's such a brief amount of time, too. He's not in the movie a lot,
No,
obviously.
But every scene he's in, his character, it was just hilarious to me.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
The way he played that. What'd you think, Jesse?
I thought it was really good. A lot of comedy in it, which I wasn't like fully expecting, but it's not like throwaway comedy. It's actually really funny stuff. I thought that they were going to do some throwaway gag at the end where it was like, because you get these mystery movies where you can't solve it, and at the end you're like, oh well, it doesn't matter how much I pay attention, you'll never figure that.
Right.
Everything in this movie, there's parts that you may not have seen, but you could piece it together, and you could have solved it if you were really, really watching. So I liked that a lot. But yeah, I liked how you said it. It's not really a whodunit. It's a why did they do it, or how did it happen exactly. And I thought it was really good. This was probably my favorite movie I've seen so far this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that a 10 out of 10?
It's
For me, Jesse
I'll
doesn't
it-
give out
I don't
10s.
give 10s very often. I'll give it a 9.
Yeah, for me, because I was thinking about it last night if I was going to give it a 10 or not too, and I literally cannot think of anything I would change. The only thing that I didn't like, I don't want to say it because it's spoilerish, but I just didn't care for
Oh,
one
this
part
is
of
a
it.
spoiler.
I know, but I don't want to spoil this movie.
All right. Fair
This
enough.
one's based around its mystery.
This one's, the whole thing is based on it. So I think I would go about 9.5. It is one of my favorites I've seen this year too.
I'll definitely be buying it.
Yeah, I remember I actually got a chance to see this one early with my entire family, and we had a ball watching it. Some people were obnoxiously laughing in
Yeah.
the background,
Yeah.
and it actually made it all the more fun.
Yeah, the theater experience is really, really cool for this one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. You should definitely go check it out if you get a chance.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the line with these guys. What did you say your
I
grade
gave it a
was?
9.
9, yeah. I'm a 9 too. The only reason Jesse didn't give it a 10 is because it doesn't have as many guns.
True.
All the guns.
Yeah, if it was called Guns Out, he would have been all about it. Last movie we have on our list is a movie we all got to see as well, called The Lighthouse. And it's a black and white film with Willem Dafoe, Robert Pattinson, and some seagulls.
Yes, and some other
farting.
stuff.
And farting. And Jesse, if you want to start this one off,
Yeah.
what did you think about this?
I take back what I said before, because this was my favorite movie that I saw this year.
Hey,
I think that Willem Dafoe was amazing in this.
thank you.
He has that speech at the end when they're talking about how much he hates his cooking, and that's going to win him an Oscar. He's winning best.
that's
He's
what
gonna
they're
win
going to
best
play.
actor. That's what they're going to play. I thought it was great. I thought that it was a perfect representation of them breaking down. I didn't really know. I'm watching it, and when you get to the end and he finally makes it up to the lighthouse, you're going, okay, what's the symbolism here? And you can piece together all of these different things of what you think it could mean, and what are these visions that he saw mean, and it was shot amazingly. The aspect ratio and stuff, I kind of worried about that, how it's going to be too boxed in and closed and everything, but that didn't bother me at all.
Good point.
They used that really well with dark backgrounds and things that kind of just like meshed in. It never felt like it was out of place. The whole movie's just fantastic. I think it's probably going to win Best Picture,
I'm gonna
or
let
at least be nominated.
yeah, it should be at
It
least.
should be. Yeah.
I'm gonna let you loose in a minute because I know you're salivating over this chance. But I just want to talk about this is a movie that doesn't get enough credit for its intricate sound design. As far as sound is playing basically the antagonist of this whole movie. It's perfect because the things you're hearing, you wonder if you're hearing them too, or if you're going crazy in the same way that these two men are. And that's what I love about it. The foghorn, the seagulls in the background, just the dead quiet even paralyzing these two. And it really makes you, or it really documents the awkwardness of spending so much time with a stranger in
I
such
didn't
an
even
enclosed
think about
area.
that.
Yeah.
That's such a good point because it does play because you are on the journey with these guys together and you're going through them losing their minds together and you feel like you're there with them. And that aspect ratio you mentioned, it boxes the frame in and it makes them feel even more confined in their space.
Absolutely.
So that just it's just an all around like experience of a movie.
The style just makes it work even better.
Yeah.
So they've pretty much said all that I would say. I will say this: this movie has a constant feeling of rising tension because it constantly bombards you with really surreal, bonkers imagery, which I loved. It made it very unpredictable.
You talking about the mermaid?
Yes. Are you going to make a penetration joke?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Good job. And I will say this: towards the end of the film, there is one particular image involving the lighthouse itself and Robert Pattinson, who also does a fantastic job, needs to get an Oscar nomination. But that singular image scared the living hell out of me, and it scarred me, and I had nightmares about that. The Lighthouse is not just my favorite movie of the year. It is one of my favorite movies of the decade. I would give The Lighthouse a 10 out of 10.
In paying into my grade, this is one of the only mainstream releases in 2019 that you're going to see that's shot entirely black and white. Yeah. Go see that. And 35 millimeter, I believe, is the ratio. So I mean, give it a shot just to see how classic vintage Tinseltown cinema was. It's 10 out of 10 for me,
And
too.
produced by A24, who continues to knock
Yes!
everything they do out of the park.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Waves, but we'll get into that later.
Oh, don't start.
Maybe.
So we got 2 10 out of 10s here?
Yeah.
2 10s.
Are we gonna
Jesse,
hear a
what are you
10?
You're not. You're going to hear a 9.5.
Oh! What about you, Nick?
It's going to get a 10 from me.
Wow.
Because I just can't think of anything that I would change. That movie stuck with me for weeks after I saw it.
Yep.
That's like Olympic
I'm still thinking about it. Jesse just doesn't give out 10s.
Well, Jesse's the Russian judge.
Simon Cowell over here.
That's right.
So, you touched on it. Just so everyone knows with our audience, when do all the announcements start coming out for the Oscar stuff?
I think that's around like February.
I think it's late January is when they usually
late
do it. Like
January.
right around that 26, 27
So
mark.
right about now, studios will start sending screeners and like Academy recommendations. So what they'll do is they'll take like Willem Dafoe's speech in The Lighthouse, and they'll say, for your consideration, best actor, best perform, and then they'll just clip that scene, and then they'll send that to the voting people. So that's going on right now, and then we'll see the ballots come out. I think late January.
If I remember correctly, that was an actual movie, right?
What's up?
For your consideration.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's looks pretty good across the board. What else we got, Nick?
I think that's it as far as the movies we were going to go over for now. So I think we're going to get into our lists of the best and worst and surprising movies of the decade. Now, whenever I presented this to the team, they're like, the decade? Because we see a lot of movies. And I was like, I know, it's going to be tough. And it was even tough for me, even though I don't see a lot of movies. Or I see a lot, but not as much as these guys. But it is a challenge. So these lists probably will change from day to day, too, if you ask these guys. Because mine does. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with our top 3 best movies of the decade.
Tough one.
Because I think that's the toughest one. Because we all love movies. So we're going to find the best. Like whenever we go to the movies, we want to look for the best. We're not looking to tear these movies apart all the time, right? Sometimes that's really easy to do. But Jesse, let's start with you for your top 3 movies.
You want all 3, or are we going to do one at a time? Or
Well, mine aren't in any particular order, so it's not like my number 1, 2, or 3. So
That's how mine are
yeah,
too.
they're kind of all. So if you just want to go all 3, and then we can kind of discuss them as we go.
I didn't try to pick things that were based on like cinematography or blew my brain. Like I tried to go with stuff that I really, really enjoyed, something that impacted my life.
That's a good point too. I don't want to jump in front of you, but this is not like best picture.
Yeah,
It's
this
like,
isn't the
it's
best
like-
of the
it's
10
like
best
what,
pictures of
what
the decade.
affected me, and like what is my personal favorite. Yeah, did you guys take it the same way?
No, favorite over best. That's how I
Yes,
took
favorite
it.
over
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so my 3 favorite movies, to start, was one that was nominated for Best Picture, which is Whiplash. Miles Teller, J.K. Simmons, and it's about this kid who all he wants to do is be an amazing jazz drummer, and he has this teacher who just screams at him and torments him, and he just wants his approval so badly, and it's about his rise and fall through this. It's basically Juilliard. I don't remember what school it actually is, but it's a musical jazz school that is the best of the best. It's incredible. It's powerful.
Is it a 10 out of 10?
It's a 10 out of 10.
Oh!
It is, the ending of that movie is one of my favorite endings of all time. Whenever he goes out and even though he's not supposed to be there, he basically says, am I allowed to cuss on this show?
Fuck it.
Okay. He's basically like, fuck you. And he goes on stage, does a drum solo, but even after that, like, he completes the solo he's supposed to do, and then he just starts going, like, bonkers. And he's showing that he has the potential to be one of the greatest to ever do it. And in that moment, you just see his teacher lock eyes with him as he's directing him in this. And as it ends, the movie goes black, and it's just incredible.
It's such a good movie.
It's on. Yeah, I've got the poster on my wall at home. I love that movie. My second choice is my favorite horror movie of all time, including the classics. It Follows. Yeah, It Follows blew me away. It got me to start watching horror again. This girl. It's a simple premise. You have this demon, this entity, this thing. Nobody can see it except for you. It's chasing after one person. The only way to get rid of it is to sleep with somebody, and then it will chase after them. If it kills them, it's coming back to you, and it's going to go down the line until it kills
And
everybody.
it can only walk, right?
It can only walk.
It only goes the
and
speed
it
of walking.
always comes at full time.
Yeah.
It's constantly coming at you. So if you're going to go to sleep, if you're going to turn your back on it, you've got to put distance between it. And so it's just this unstoppable force that you're trying to
And
keep
it's-
from killing you.
Which in turn is teenage sexuality. You
Right.
know, I mean, it's a great dissection for that.
There's a ton of stuff in it. There's moments where the only person who can see it is the person that it's chasing, and they see, images of their parents chasing after them. It can change the way that it looks. This isn't a monster movie. It's not scary in that aspect. It's just this crazy, terrifying symbolism that is incredible.
And it has your favorite soundtrack, like, of all time.
Oh my God.
yes.
It's like, it just picks back to those Halloween days where everything's just like 80s synthesizer.
Like, if you have a chance to, if you have a vinyl player, a CD player, or vinyl CD player, if you have a vinyl, if you have
you got tapes.
no, buy this soundtrack on vinyl. It's
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
best soundtracks of all time.
Detroit is my favorite track on that.
Yeah,
on the
it's
whole.
so good.
Yeah.
And then my final it's more of like a fun movie. It's never got nominated for anything, but it's Chef, Jon Favreau.
Ooh, okay.
It really hones in on the beauty of cooking. And I was never a cook. I was the guy that ate rice-a-roni. I didn't know how to make anything. This movie changed me in that aspect. I cook a ton now.
Can we ask someone in the audience about that?
Baby, tell them. But my culinary skills and my love for food came from this movie. Just the way that they shoot it. It's not a movie that includes food. It is a movie that it loves food. It's seen the way that it's shot. Everything has precise care. And then along with that, it's a little happy family movie along the way.
Yeah.
I love that movie. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 because it's not a masterpiece type of film. But when it comes to just my own enjoyment, I've watched it dozens of times since it's
too.
come out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's streaming on Amazon right now.
Yeah, it's amazing. You should definitely check it out.
really good.
There's a Netflix show now too. Also,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's called The
It's
Chef
called
Show.
The Chef Show with
And
Jon
it's-
Favreau.
Oh,
and he
that's
goes
perfect.
around to different places. And
Yeah, it's Favreau and the
great.
chef who trained him for the movie, and they just cook a bunch of dishes, and it's a fun show too.
Wow.
Nice.
Interesting.
So yeah, those are mine.
all right.
You
Chris, you
want
wanna go ahead?
Yeah, I'll take the helm. Why not? So these are the best. Actually, I'm gonna kick off with a movie that Jesse had already mentioned. That was Whiplash. Instead of mentioning a lot about it, I'll just say the music is top notch. The way it's directed, spine tingling anxiety and tension that goes along with every scene. Long takes all around. Miles Teller learned how to actually play the drums for this movie, so everything he's playing is actually in real time. The movie is top notch. J.K. Simmons definitely deserved the Oscar. I'm glad he won it for the movie, and it makes 95 minutes go by faster than
Oh
you've
my
ever
gosh,
seen in your
I
life. The second movie on my list is a sequel, Blade Runner 2049, which I think is the greatest sequel of all time.
All time.
Of all time.
Godfather 2?
Yes,
Toy Story 2?
Greatest sequel.
Terminator
of all
2?
Time. Terminator 2.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, get them out of the chopper. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, I love Blade Runner 2049. Without question, the best cinematography that I've ever seen in a movie. Yeah, absolutely. Roger Deakins, legendary. Great performances all around from Ryan Gosling. Harrison Ford returns to play Rick Deckard, the character he made famous in the 1982 original movie. The themes are beautiful. There's a lot about humanity, despite it being a film about androids, and exceptional movie all around. It stands on its own feet without needing the Blade Runner folklore to sell it.
Yeah.
Also amazing soundtrack.
Beautiful.
Oh
movie,
yeah,
too.
some nice guy bought you that soundtrack.
They did. He's
Is
sitting
it?
right there.
And then the other movie for me is from 2015. It is The Revenant. The fact that this movie did not win Best Picture might be the biggest snub of the decade, in
What
my
did win
opinion.
that year?
That year was Spotlight. And I do agree, Spotlight is a very important film, but the technical aspects of The Revenant, it's real life that's transferring on film. It's everything that you see, natural lighting scheme. Leonardo DiCaprio forced to live out in the cold I think they shot this in Antarctica, I believe. Forced to live in the cold of a negative temperature environment. A vegan who is forced to eat buffalo liver for the part. It's all incredible. You don't see this kind of thing on films every day. And Alejandro Inarritu, who is my favorite director, makes everything. It just makes you. It gives you an immersive experience to everything. The cold, the way everything we're seeing, walking through these long take shots, going in and out of these war zones, left and right between these tribes that are invading.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect. It's a little long, yes, but for my money, I was never bored by it. And to me, it is the best film of the decade.
That shot, whenever it's towards the beginning, but whenever they're stealing the pelts, and the music just stops, and it's just the
Thank you.
That is love, man.
and the sound kind of, or the music kind of drops, and you just hear the sounds of the guns and the horses and the splashes of the water, and the camera is just following it like a ground level.
Yes.
I can't. You can't get anything better.
And it finally got Leo his Oscar.
It did.
It did, finally.
There you go.
Even though he should have won it like 3 other
I was
times.
going to say, I think that it's one of his so-so movies as far as like
So
the
not
things he went
9.5?
through. No, I think he's had better performances.
I still think The
thought that
Basketball Diaries is his best performance, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll go ahead and go with mine.
Okay.
My no particular order, but everybody knows I love Christopher Nolan. He's my favorite director,
Wait.
No. Shocker.
and he's put out some bangers this decade.
Absolutely.
But I think for my money, if I had to pick one that really stuck with me, I'm going with Inception. As one of my favorite movies. I mean, it's just I love anything that has to do with time and the manipulation of time. And that movie just made it is just so interesting how they layered like the dream aspect and the set design in that movie. Whenever they made the actual set that moved for that hallway fight scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh my
And-
gosh.
Everything's actually
and everything's
turning.
and the set is actually turning, so it looks like they're in anti-gravity, but they're not. They're just walking on a spinning set. I mean, because Christopher Nolan likes to shoot as much as he can practically to get a really good, eye feel for the. I mean, it's just I can go on and on, but we'll go on to the next
Can
one.
I ask you a question, though, before you do?
Yeah.
Ending, dream or reality?
See, I go back and forth. I think, put me on the spot, man. I like to think that the whole movie is a dream, and that it's just his way of connecting with his kids.
Perfect. I love that.
And that's just the way I like to stick with it. I know that's not what they interviewed Morgan Freeman, and they said that anytime Michael Caine's character is on the screen, that it's reality. So whenever they come back at the end at the airport and Michael Caine is there to greet, then that's reality. So that's what Christopher Nolan told them as they were filming, is anytime he's on film or on screen, it's a reality. And I'm like, I don't buy that.
Yeah,
I don't
like that either.
I don't like that either. It doesn't sit right with me.
That's too simple.
Yeah. The next movie on my list is going to be a film with Joaquin Phoenix. It is not Joker. It is Her.
Yes.
And it's one of my favorite movies of all time, not even decade. And, I mean, that movie just hit me in a time in my life where I was like going through some stuff. And the relationship aspect of that movie, about how he deals with relationships and not being able to really know who he is in order to let someone else in. And he like finds a relationship with like a fake person in his, like, the movie's weird, but if you watch it and just give it time to breathe and get into it, it's a masterpiece. And I think that is before I saw Joker, I thought that was one of the best that I've ever seen Joaquin Phoenix.
And what a social commentary on romantic interaction. And what
Right.
was it, 2013 was when
Yeah.
it was made? Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if Scarlett Johansson got nominated.
She didn't, but she
She
should have
didn't,
been.
but
Yeah.
we had talked about her being, because she's
Just
just
for a voice.
She's just the voice of his earpiece.
She's
who-
Siri, basically.
Yeah, who he ends up having a relationship with. And it's just phenomenal. I love that movie.
It's a great pick.
And then the third one on my list, being the comic book nerd that I am, I had to throw one in there, and I went back and forth between Infinity War and this one, and I picked Civil War
The Ruse!
just because I remember how I felt leading up to that movie, and I had not seen them all together at all on one screen before.
What an image.
And knowing that was going to happen eventually, and being a fan of the actual comics, and actually being able to see for the first time those pages come to life.
Yeah.
And then they're fighting each
And
other.
then
They're
they're
not
fighting-
even fighting together.
I know, it's just unreal. And what put it over the moon for me over Infinity War was that anticipation factor of finally getting to see that.
I'll interject for a second. Were you Team Cap or Team Iron Man?
Ooh.
You don't know me very well. It's Team Cap all
I
the
thought
way.
so. I want to just get the record straight.
Yeah, so it was Team Cap all the way, still is.
All right, so I like to end with you, and I like to go now because I like to be the common folk. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, you guys, I thank you for being a part of this show. You're very well esteemed throughout the entire Akron community, and you guys are very astute at what you do, and I respect you as actual movie critics. Right. I don't look at myself like that. I look at myself as common, everyday dad who, when he can afford to go to a movie because he's got all these kids all over the place, he goes and sees a flick, right? So when I saw these questions, I honed in on this one because I ain't got time to answer everything. But when I think of my three, they might surprise you. I hope they do. All right. The first one for me is Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
And-
yes,
movie.
it's a good pick. I think it's Ryan's favorite movie.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, that's where I thought Scorsese was changing I thought that was the changing of the guard. We got DiCaprio now. We got Jonah Hill. We got Matthew McConaughey in there, right? And they're all putting out these stellar performances. Yeah. I mean, we all still do that, right? The point is, though, and that's why I was a little disappointed when we went backwards with The Irishman, right? But that, to me, that was one of those, as far as when I think of decade, okay, that stands apart.
It's kind of like a criticky choice there, man.
My bad, my
Bingo,
bad.
bango, one of us. Bingo, bango, one of us.
So my second one, I'm gonna cheat, okay? Because it came out in 2009 in the middle, but I didn't see it till 2010, so I'm cheating.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say The Hangover, and the reason I'm saying The Hangover is because to me that was the first time where we saw a movie, and the movie wasn't the story. That was the aftermath. The story.
That's a good point.
The story comes out at the end in the credits with Polaroid pictures.
Yeah.
And you're going, wow,
That is a great ending to a
You're
movie.
like, that's what really happened, okay? So that to me was a kind of a groundbreaking kind of movie. And then my third one, I'm going geeky comic with you, Deadpool. To me,
Nice.
Deadpool is where Iron Man and Ferris Bueller had a baby, okay? So all of a sudden, you've got this big action flick, but it's wrapped up with this rated R, completely inappropriate comedy that is essentially interacting with the crowd the whole time. Half the time, he's talking to the crowd. You know, he stops the action and he turns,
Breaks the
Breaks
fourth
the
wall.
fourth wall.
looks
yep.
at that camera, and he goes, da, 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 and he goes, maximum effort. You know, that kind of stuff.
That's
So
literally one of the funniest movies I've seen in the past decade.
those are my three from common folk America.
Those are good picks.
I like
No,
them.
good picks. Yeah.
All right.
All right, so you guys have pretty much stolen almost all of mine. So I will go ahead. I'll start with, I believe this came out in 2013, Prisoners, which
Prisoners is good.
is honestly one of the best mystery crime thrillers that I've seen ever. It is.
That's a good pick.
It's impeccably
It was
shot.
almost-
The
I
acting
forgot
is
about that.
awesome. And the ending that it leaves on a very ambiguous note, I freaking love that. This is at a time when I wasn't nearly like as nitpicky as I am now. Back then I was like, I'll just go see this because my dad wants to see it. And I'm like, I'm loving this.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And the fact that I loved it this much when I was a lot younger and not easily as entertained as I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
echoes real life, the real life prolonging of a case, or not every answer is given, like you said with the ending. Not everything is airtight.
Right. Another one that I really like. I went back and forth between several A24 movies, but I'll go ahead and end up picking The Florida Project.
Oh yeah.
I think that it is one of A24's best outings. It is an exceptional film that really looks at poverty and how it can affect the parents, as well as the relationship between a parent and a child. It's really heartbreaking, but also a very entertaining movie, and I just love it all around.
Done by all first-time child actors, except for Willem Dafoe.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And finally, I did have to go a little nerdy on this one, but I decided to not go with an MCU one. I went back and forth between Joker and this, and I'm going to pick Logan. Logan was exactly what I wanted. I feel like without Deadpool, we wouldn't have gotten Logan, but without Logan, we wouldn't have gotten Joker, because Logan is such a dark, depressing, exciting, and it's the only comic book movie that has ever made me cry.
And how nice does it feel to have finality in a comic book movie?
You didn't cry during Infinity War?
Yes.
Come on, man.
Yes, I did. Well, that's an MCU movie. This.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, those are
Logan
my
also
three
has
picks.
the greatest trailer for a superhero movie.
It
ever.
really does.
It's so good.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Are we moving straight to worst?
Yeah.
You want me to get started with that?
We should pan it down. Go to surprising, disappointing, and then worst.
Okay. Surprisingly good.
Surprisingly good.
All right. I'll go with surprisingly good. First of all, I'm gonna go with Fantastic Four. And I know that's a little controversial.
Which one are we talking about?
Fan four stick.
Fan Four stick.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because I don't think. I mean, I was outside of the theater last night talking about this with Jesse, and I had this on my worst list.
And I told him,
And
I'm going to call your ass out because we both like this
We
movie.
went and
until
saw it.
like
We
15
went and
minutes
saw it
left.
together, and I remember watching it and like leaning over to him. I'm like, "This is good."
We were like, are we going to like this? Because it was supposed to be terrible.
Nice.
And then I do hate the end of it and like how they got their power. Like, there's a lot of it that I do hate.
I hate Doom.
Me too.
Doom was what
But-
ruins it at the end, the
Yeah.
whole end of
But
Doom.
I expected it to be a pile of dog crap,
Mhm.
and it was not to me. Redemptive qualities.
I love that pick, man.
Yeah.
All
Wow.
right. Fair enough.
Next one is Man of Steel,
Okay.
Okay.
and because I don't have high hopes for DC movies, and
What about after this year?
well, I'm going to continue with this one.
Okay.
And Man of Steel continues to be in my top 3 superhero movies of all time. Every time I watch Man of Steel, I love it more. I don't know if it's Zack Snyder. I don't know if it's Hans Zimmer. I don't know if it's a combination of both. Probably Hans Zimmer. But
Imagine that from you.
but I love that movie. Anytime it's on TBS, because it always seems to be on TNT or TBS at some point, I watch it. Same with Pearl Harbor. I know it's not on because it came out last.
You're really just
Speaking
throwing
of
out
which-
some doozies.
Today is Pearl Harbor
It
Day.
is, yes.
Yeah.
Jesse had a really funny Onion article that he
that?
posted.
No, I did
but
not.
We'll get into it later. Sorry.
Kamikaze scuba
Um,
diving
if I do-
reach Pearl
And the
Harbor.
last surprisingly good movie that I have is Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
And
I was so mad that he took it because I wanted it.
and I'm not a huge horror movie person, never have been. And that movie changed my viewpoint on because to me it's not really a horror movie, it's more of a tongue-in-cheek like thriller.
It's a deconstruction.
It's a deconstruction of the genre. And
It's kind of like what Scream was at first, only
And it's-
even more so.
it's just fantastic.
Um,
Oh yeah.
He told me what it was called.
So good.
I do have to interject
Sure.
a little bit because I actually only did 2 of my best. Yeah, sorry. The third one, I'm going to go back all the way to 2010, would be The Social Network.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yes,
Start of the
'cause
decade.
Yes, I remember that movie so clearly, even though I've only seen it twice. And the last time I saw it was like 5 years ago. I absolutely love it. It's a movie about Facebook. It's a damn good drama.
You know what's
with-
crazy is that movie has more visual effects shots than like the Godzilla movie. Because
Are
of-
you kidding me?
Because they use the same actor. They didn't use like twins. They use like whatever his name is.
Jesse Eisenberg.
No, the guy the dude who plays the brothers.
Tyler
The
Winklevoss
Winklevoss twins or whatever their name is. They didn't
Army Hammer.
Yeah, there's only one Army Hammer. So they had like a camera in
That is
front of
true.
him and did like the light, like whenever they're rowing, they had like a camera and lights around his head, and they had like impose, and then they did like buildings and backgrounds. It's, if you ever look it up, it has one of the most visual effects shots in that movie of all time.
Yeah, sorry to interject. I
What a waste
wanted to
of
get that
budget.
out because I didn't
Absolutely.
think it to. So you did your 3 surprising.
Yeah.
Who wants to go? Cool. Want me to?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I ooh, look at that.
This is how I got through school.
So one movie that really surprised me, but which I don't know how you guys will feel about it, is Warm Bodies, which came out in 2014. I remember going into that movie thinking, oh my gosh, this is just going to be another Twilight movie, and I was laughing my ass off in that
was a
movie.
decent movie.
I was really surprised by it, but anything else, and especially the adorable chemistry between the two main leads. I keep pushing my fiance, to watch it, and she will be watching it at some point. I hope you're watching it because you will be watching it.
Ooh, there's a threat. Was that rated R or was that PG-13?
That's
I think it's
PG-13.
PG-13.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that everyone said, "Oh, it's another Twilight ripoff." It's not. Give it a shot. It's really funny. It's really sweet.
Robert Pattinson can't play Batman.
He can't deserve an Oscar.
Yes, he can.
Sparkles. Okay, so another big surprise to me was the Lego Movie.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I remember
Wasn't surprised
when the
a lot.
first advertisements came out, I was like, this is a cash grab and a
what I
half.
thought, too.
This
I could see
movie
that.
is just corporate sell or anything. And I watched it and I'm like, why did I even think that? It is probably one of the best animated movies of the past decade. It is so funny, so clever. And
That's one of the best Batmans ever.
yes,
It really
does.
is.
It does.
It
Will
really
Arnett's
is.
Batman, and that's awesome.
Yeah. You already took Cabin in the Woods, so I can't do that. But the last one, I will say, I'll bounce back to what I originally thought. It was 2016's A Monster Calls, which was
yes.
not enough people
saw that.
saw that. That movie, I think I've never cried so hard in a movie ever. That movie left me in a puddle of tears. It is visually striking. The performances are fantastic. I really think that more people need to revisit it because it's really good.
Yeah, I'm such a boy that has such a love relationship with his mother, and I can understand that film beyond anything. It is perfect. You're right. I broke down in tears when I watched that movie.
Yeah.
I just, the thoughts and everything that boy goes through, and the way that they articulate the monster into all of his demons and everything that he's facing within that. Outstanding, dude. What a great pick.
All right, Jesse?
Cool. I'll go. My first one was The Raid.
Ooh, yes.
Didn't know anything about it. I worked at a movie theater. It was super limited release. Nick had heard from somebody that it was supposed to be good, but we didn't know context, premise, hadn't seen a trailer. We were just like, yeah, screw it. We got nothing to do tonight. And we walked out of one of the greatest action movies,
Yes.
not that I've ever seen, that has ever been made.
I was sweating whenever I left that movie.
The simplest presence. It's just this story about he's a cop. They're raiding this apartment complex. There's a drug lord at the top that they're trying to get to, and on the side, his brother works for him, and he's trying to bring him back to reality. And that's it. And the rest of it is just, as soon as they go in, the guy gets on and says, hey, you're living here for free if you kill these cops. And it's just this crazy, violent, bloody, incredibly choreographed,
Yes.
amazing action movie. It's just kung fu out the ass, guns, knives. It's incredible, and the sequel is just as good.
Yeah,
So
and you wouldn't think there'd
Of
be a
course you'd
sequel.
like it then.
no, yeah, it's so good. We didn't know anything about it, so that was probably my biggest surprise, just because I was like, "What the fuck is this movie?" And
That's
it was
great
incredible.
pick. Yeah.
My second one was Lawless.
My brother would appreciate that.
Yeah, I really liked this movie. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's Shia LaBeouf, it's Tom Hardy. There's a ton of people in this. Like,
Jessica Chastain.
Jessica Chastain is in it. There's the cast is incredible. But it's just these brothers that are bootleggers, and they've been getting away with what they've wanted to do for a long time because the cops kind of turn a blind eye to them. And then this Chicago, I don't know if he's a detective or a deputy or a
He's a
federal
deputy.
agent or something, but he comes down and he's gonna fuck their process up. I mean, he's blowing up their operations, they're killing people, and I think it's a really fun movie. I don't know if it's amazing, but it's really good, and it's the classic Tom Hardy I thought I walked. I mean, that was just like the best line.
Mumbling.
Yeah, he's just great. So that was another one. My dad wanted me to watch it. I was like, I'm not going to watch some movie my dad wants me to watch, and it ended up being great.
See, father knows best.
And then my last pick was Swiss Army Man.
Ah!
My favorite movie of 2016. That
Swiss
was
Army
awesome.
Man is incredible. It's a movie that opens up with this guy who
Oh my
he's
gosh.
going to kill himself. He's stuck on an island.
We saw that in an empty theater.
We saw it in an empty theater. Nobody went to go see this movie.
Oh.
Everybody should see it. I believe it's on Netflix. But he's going to kill himself because he can't get off of this island, and all of a sudden a dead body washes up on the land, and it turns out that this is this magical being that he can talk to. It gradually, gets consciousness, and it turns into this beautiful story
love story.
about love and learning what love is and learning what life is. And
Lots of farts.
and there's it starts off with a bunch of fart jokes, and me and Nick were like ready to walk out after the opening scene because this body turns into a fart motorboat and gets him off of the island. But after that, I promise you, this is like the most incredible movie. It brought me to tears.
Jesse Unk, tell us about the boners.
Yeah. There's a boner compass and all this other stuff. Just trust me, it's amazing. All right, it's beautiful.
It's a story about love.
But it is
Between
though.
two men.
And it comes down to this whole ambiguous thing: is he real? Is it all in his head? Is this just dehydration and he's imagining this and learning about himself, or is this actually happening? But it is one of the most beautiful, heart-touching movies that I've ever seen in my life, and I expected nothing from it. And it's one of my favorite movies ever.
Wow.
All right, so are we going to move on to...
Wait.
Well, I didn't do the...
Oh.
We've got his
forgot.
surprises.
I'll make it quick, I promise.
No, don't make it quick. Take your time.
So the first film on my surprising list is The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yes.
Which is actually the last movie that I ever saw at the Plaza 8. Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
But this movie, it feels like what John Hughes would do if he was still making films today. Very much like he knows teenagers. Steven Chbosky is such an underrated director. Just the way he shoots teenage situations and the way the weight carries over to every one of their decisions. It talks about loneliness. It talks about being included. And I think it's one of the most touching films I've ever seen personally.
Yeah.
The next film is Dread.
Yeah.
From 2012, sorry. Carl Urban got the money made for this Judge Dredd movie himself. They got the budget hacked by $10 million at the very last minute, and yet still, this movie pisses all over the Sylvester Stallone one from the 90s. It is outstanding, nonstop action, a structure similar to The Raid, not as impressive in terms of choreography, but what an outstanding movie and a very grim depiction of a future.
I don't think I've ever seen
I never saw Dread either.
Oh,
I thought it looked terrible,
you need
and I just
to.
didn't
It's
see it.
really good.
Dread deserves your eyes for
Okay.
sure. My number one pick is right up along with The Thing from 1982. I feel this is one of the greatest horror remakes of all time, and that's Evil Dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Yes.
That was a good pick.
Evil Dead, this was a movie, so talk about surprising. This is a movie that I was dreading going into. I completely just had no positive expectations for this movie. My friend and I went to see it during his birthday weekend, and I remember coming out of it and going like, okay, it's official. I know nothing about trailers now. Like, I don't know how to judge anything anymore. This movie is outstanding. Buckets of blood, lots of fun all around, maintains that campy feeling, but also harvests the seriousness of the situation that the original movies never really did.
Yeah.
This movie was a lot of fun. It's unfortunate we never got a sequel. We did get a kick-ass show on top of it on Stars. But it's a lot of fun. And if you like B-movie, cheesy, campy horror, this is the one to go see.
Okay.
I really, really like that.
That is a good pick.
Yeah.
So on to disappointments.
Did you want to start off?
Sure. There's one on here that's going to be very controversial. But I'll start off with something from this year, Brightburn. That is one of the biggest disappointments of this past decade for me personally. I know some people like it, and good on you if you like it. Just know that you're wrong. But as Nick made the joke in the last time we talked about it, this movie was not a bright burn; it was a slow burn, which is not exactly what it's supposed to be. This movie just ruined or wasted a good premise on Evil Superman on this slow burn, dumb horror movie that I just didn't like at all.
So you didn't like it?
I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
Borderline hated it. Yeah. Another big disappointment was Suicide Squad.
It almost went on mine.
And I'll be fair. The trailer is freaking awesome. I love the trailer for the movie,
That's
and I do think that there are a couple of really good performances in it. But overall, I just think it's structurally very messy. It's not that funny, especially upon rewatch. Somebody I think disagrees in the audience.
Ryan Weiss loves this movie. He's wrong.
Fair enough.
We've talked about it before.
But the last one, and I know I'm going to get shit for this, is Blade Runner 2049. I really wanted to like this movie, and I think it is an exceptionally well-made movie, and I don't think it's bad by any means, but I don't love it. I think it's just mediocre.
I have that other one too.
But
all right, here.
Yeah.
No, go on.
But I was just disappointed. I've only seen it once. Maybe it has grown on me. I'll probably watch it again. But when I saw it, I was really into it for the first hour. Then it dragged, and I was like, just end now. So
I'll say this: it was a very, it was a long watch for us when we went to see it in the theaters.
It was.
But I think it entertained you too.
Yeah, because I had not seen the first one.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have no idea going into this, like what it's going to be. I'm with you. It was one of my favorites of the decade, but I can see where you're coming from for sure.
I can too, especially if like had you seen the original Blade Runner going into
I
it?
had,
You
yes,
did?
and
Okay.
I love the original Blade Runner.
Is that why it's your disappointment because you had expectations for it?
I had very high expectations for it. Yes.
That's clear to see then. Okay. You want me to go next?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at what, disappointing?
Disappointing,
Okay. Oh
yeah.
God, this is gonna get off some demons.
Oh boy,
So
I'm ready.
basically with disappointment with me, it's the obvious. It's you're going into it and you're like, man, I am pumped for that movie. I've seen the trailer and I am ready to watch this film. And these three movies let me down more than anything has this decade. The first on the list is Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
Assassin's Creed was some of the best trailers for a video game movie that I've ever seen in my life. I said, this might be the one that finally does it. And they got Fassbender, man. They got Fassbender behind it. And man, was it a pile of puke. Oh God, it was awful. Horrible editing, just an ugly color scheme all around with the movie. It was like a piss yellow. It was disgusting.
How about the fact that it was PG-13?
And PG-13, yeah.
Yeah,
on top of
that's
it.
just dumb.
And
He's an assassin.
and so very little to do with the actual series of games themselves. So yeah, it's just it was disappointing all around for me, and just further adds to why there hasn't been a great video game movie yet.
That movie.
Hopefully
is why
Sonic
I'm
will be
worried
the
about
one.
Uncharted. Uncharted has Tom Holland and
Yes.
all these other great actors, and it's going to be dog shit.
Okay.
Oh no!
It will
want to
be.
I don't know anything about this game, so I don't have
You need to
expectations.
at least watch a
amazing.
playthrough of it to get a gist of it, because it is one of the best video games out there.
It is.
Okay. The second movie on my list is going to ruffle some feathers,
Oh, boy.
particularly in this direction.
Oh, boy.
And that's Godzilla, King of Monsters.
That's a good pick.
I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I can see why.
For me, I was pumped for this movie. These trailers were gorgeous, and it just for a huge Toho fan like me from the old Godzilla movies, this was a big disappointment. I don't look for too much logic in a Godzilla movie, but I feel if you're going to play the Rambo card for
Now,
a Rambo movie,
all right, there
you
we
also
go.
have to play it for Godzilla. And what does this movie say about anything that has to do with our current social climate?
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's just sloppy computer generation for me, an ugly color design, and
A lack of characterization.
and lack characterization totally, and just illogical character moves that were every bit as stupid as Jurassic World 2. So the most the most disappointing movie of the decade for me was an easy one. There's no question about it. I am a huge Stephen King fan, so The Dark Tower was the biggest piece of crap that I've ever seen in my life. And now, considering these 8 books are basically my Bibles, I love these novels. They're perfect in every way. Great world building all around, amazing characters, and this movie, this 90-minute
Atrocity.
paper thin novelization of this was awful all around. I mean, they made McConaughey look bad. They made what's his name? Idris Elba looked terrible. I hated
The
this movie.
trailers for that even look good.
Yeah, the trailers look promising.
To me, they look promising.
I thought it looked like shit from the beginning.
I thought the picks, like the casting, was a little off for sure. But like going into it, I'm like, you know what? I got faith in it. And plus, this taught me all about hyperbole in terms of when Stephen King says, "Oh, it's a great movie, and I've seen it, and it's flawless and everything. It's a great representation." This taught me to call BS every time that I hear that now. So now I can't believe it anytime I see it. But yeah, The Dark Tower is my most disappointing movie of the decade.
Okay. You want to go or you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. So, disappointment. I had Suicide Squad on my list as well.
Yeah.
Just because I had really high expectations for that. When it comes to that movie, I still love the color schemes. I love the potential of that movie, and that's why I think I'm disappointed in it, because I do love bits and pieces of it. I just think it could be a lot more. So with James Gunn doing Suicide Squad, like the Suicide Squad coming up like in a year or two.
Adding one word onto the title.
Yeah, I like James Gunn, and I like his visions for like ensemble movies like Guardians of the Galaxy. I think he has a real eye for that. So I'm looking forward to that.
Let's hope.
But Suicide Squad's on my list. Next on my list is Justice League.
Yeah.
It did not live up to my expectations at all. I know there's a Snyder cut out there somewhere that I'd really like to see. You know, a black and white version that's not horrendous with a CGI mustache. And, it's just, that movie has a lot of problems. And I could go on and on about the production problems
And compare this to basically Marvel's version, The Avengers, that 2012 Avengers. Which was incredible. Compare them both.
There is none.
And you'll see
no
night
comparison.
and day.
There's no comparison. And
What happens when you try to fast track a process?
For sure. And that's why these are on my disappointed list, because you can see the potential there. Sure. And you have the content.
Yeah.
And then the last one on my list is Aladdin.
Oh, yeah.
The most recent one. I could probably speak for Jesse. Aladdin is one of the best Disney movies of all time.
It's my favorite
It's his favorite
movie, period.
Wow.
And
I love Aladdin.
I just, with the adaptation that they did this past year, it was just atrocious to me. I thought the casting was okay, but I did not think that they were given the material to succeed.
No.
And it looked like a Bollywood movie to me. It just didn't look like it was set in the right place. It just was not consistent. I just didn't like it. It left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was just disappointed because I know what Aladdin could be, and I knew that it was just, I just didn't like it.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that pick.
So my three are personal, kind of like my favorites were. I'm a diehard Browns fan. I'm sure most people in Northeast Ohio are. So as a
He's not.
as a movie fan, as a Browns fan, and as a football fan, draft day was a huge disappointment for me.
I put that out of my head. I didn't even think about that.
Why did you bring that back up?
This movie is bad as a movie. It's bad as a Browns fan, and it's bad as football. The ending scene, this guy trades 3 first-round picks to get this amazing quarterback.
This would never happen.
But then they find out that his players and college didn't go to his birthday party, so he must have character issues. So now they don't want to take him, and this whole time he's felt like he should have taken the linebacker from Ohio State. Nudge, nudge, Brown State. So he takes him anyways, but now he's given 3 first-round picks up for a guy that he could have got at pick number 7 to begin with. So he trades 3. And ultimately, he gets people that he could have got if he just didn't make the moves in the first place, losing 3 second-round picks along the way, and I'd have fired his ass anyways. So he was terrible for the Browns.
Is this your worst movie?
But it fit. It
was a disappointment because
it fit the Browns' narrative.
Tell us how you really feel about it.
oh my god! And then
He's right.
And
He's
then they named the quarterback Brian because we had Brian Hoyer at the time. And we thought he was going to be the future. It was just a shit show. It was so disappointing.
Oh, I love it.
So that's my first one.
I could sit here for an hour and listen to you rip this movie apart.
That movie was so bad.
Tune into our podcast.
My second movie is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I know a ton of people like. And I didn't hate it. It's not like Draft Day where I'm going to rip this movie apart. But when I go into a Tarantino movie, I expect a couple of things. I expect crazy over-the-top action, which we got a lot of in like a last 10-minute segment. Yeah. But most of all, I go for the dialogue. His scripts are amazing. When he's sitting there Reservoir Dogs, when they're talking about tipping the waitress and it's that throwaway conversation, but it's so good and organic. I love that. When Pulp Fiction, you're talking about the Royale with cheese, you're talking about giving the wife a foot massage. It's these conversations that make Tarantino. And there's nothing in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that really resonated with me that I can sit here and make like little quotes to and memorable conversation. It was shot really well. It's beautiful. It's well acted. The story's good, but it's just like, it just wasn't Tarantino for me. So when I walked out, that was my most anticipated movie of the year, and I was just really, really disappointed with it.
I'll give it to you. I like it, but I can't disagree with anything you're saying.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to Tarantino, I thought this was going to be something that would blow me away like Inglourious Bastards did and automatically jump to my top with Pulp Fiction and some of the other greats. And it's probably my least favorite of what he's done that I've seen. Okay. And then my final one was War for the Planet of the Apes.
Wow. Okay. That ruffles my feathers.
I really like the first one, which I think that was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or
Rise
of the Planet of the Apes.
Dawn.
The origin story of how we got to that point. I thought it was really, well put together, well thought out. Okay, he's a doctor. He's trying to do Alzheimer's, and this gives him his intelligence, and, they're mistreated and blah, blah, blah. There's all this stuff going on. It's really good. The second one, I didn't think it was as good as the first, but it was still pretty good. World building and all that. And then you get to War of the Planet of the Apes, and they kind of they were just like, okay, so a bunch of people are dead. We're going to exposition that out real quick so you don't see that. We had a throwaway ending scene in the last movie, and now everybody's gone. And then there's no freaking war. There's no war. There's a battle, but I'm pretty sure it was an avalanche or something that ended up killing most of the people. Like, it wasn't even like a real battle. It was a quick 20-minute thing. There's no war, and then there's no like, oh yeah, here's how they took over. Like, it was one battle in one place. What happened in Asia? What happened in Europe? How did the apes take over there? Like, they never tell you anything about what's going on that gets you to the place of the original. And it was just like, I didn't get anything answered.
And Woody Harrelson doing his best General Patton impression.
It was bad. So that disappointed me because I really liked that trilogy up until that point. And I felt like it just fell more than flat.
Interesting.
Do you want to go ahead and get us started on our last category, the worst?
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
So you're already on that train anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Get it out.
So I'm going to start with The Last Airbender.
Yes.
It was one of the worst movies that I've ever seen.
Was that this decade?
Yes,
it was. I think it was 2010.
Oh my God.
Avatar is an amazing show. One of the best cartoon animes, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen growing up. Watched it all the time. Great world, great characters. You watch them grow. And then M. Night Shyamalama Ding Dong gets his hands on it. And this was when he was at the bottom of his directing career. He had rode a high with, Sixth Sense and Signs and all of that. And then he just crashed. And so he's got Nickelodeon Studios producing this movie. And I just remember there's one scene where you have 6 guys. They had the cool concept, just like the show, where certain martial arts moves makes the element bending happen. They had 6 guys do this, and this boulder literally just floats over. It doesn't even fly into the bad guys. So that movie was just garbage.
We have a major fan of the last.
I see you shaking your head as soon as I say it. Yeah. My second one was The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I hate this movie.
The Amazing Spider-Man, I thought was good but not great. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I thought the crane scene was stupid. There were dumb things here and there, but I thought, just like you said earlier, this is potential, I really like Andrew Garfield as the Amazing Spider-Man, because the Amazing Spider-Man, people didn't like that he wasn't nerdy, but that's not the Amazing Spider-Man, So all this stuff goes into it, and then it was just dog shit. It was so bad. It was like Spider-Man 3. You've got the whole Electro thing was terrible, and then
the music when Electro comes out, it's just the sound design of that movie.
And the fact that when he gets his powers, his braces fall off or his teeth
his teeth get fixed.
His teeth get fixed.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
And and then the whole, did they call him the Hobgoblin, or was he still the Green Goblin? I don't think they even clarified that.
Yeah.
But Dane DeHaan looked terrible in that movie, and the story itself was just garbage. So as a Spider-Man fan, that was just a letdown and a half. It was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And then this last one, I never actually purchased a ticket for it. I watched it in bits and pieces on break while I worked at the movie theater. But this is probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen, not even just in this decade, and that is The Legend of Hercules.
Oh,
not-
no.
I hope my buddy Stu's watching.
Yeah,
Oh,
not Hercules with The Rock.
No, I
the
know.
one that came out, it was just prior
It was
or
the same
just
year, I think.
after. Yeah, they were within like 2 months of each other. No name actors. I couldn't tell you a single one that's in it. Terrible CGI. And I don't know if they thought, I don't know what the hell they thought, because this was in our theater and a lot of, like, it got pretty decent release. Like, there were trailers everywhere. And
I'm going to interject. I actually remember one scene from the movie where a guy gets like stabbed with a spear,
Yeah.
but it's not like CGI'd. He actually like tucks
he
it
tucks it
behind
under his
him.
arm.
Oh my god!
And there's another scene where he fights a lion, and the lion jumps on this rock, and the CGI looks like something that you would get in an 8th grade introduction to computer. Like, it's the worst movie.
Oh God.
I had another one I was going to pick, but Nick already picked it, so we'll get to that one later. But yeah, that's my replacement. It's the second worst movie I've ever seen.
All right,
All right.
Nick.
So mine, it's going to start off with the literal worst movie that I've ever seen that I cannot believe I didn't walk out of.
Ever.
It's movie 43.
Oh. Oh.
You have it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you both have it?
I don't.
Oh, I was going to say, because it would have been on all of our lists. It's a hodgepodge movie with maybe 7 or 8 different acts.
It's about a guy trying to get a movie made in
Yes.
Hollywood, and he's trying to
And he's
force his
pitching
script
these
onto these directors.
And
With
it
a
has-
gigantic, very famous cast
Yeah,
who
it has
probably
a-
wish they could take this off their resume.
It has a gigantic cast with A-list actors, and the first scene is Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry eating at a restaurant, and Hugh Jackman has literal balls on his chin, and that only Halle Berry can see, and they keep dipping into his soup, and it just doesn't
is a
get
real
any
movie.
worse than that. And then
How did this happen?
and then Chris
Stuckman?
no Chris Anna Faris
Pine.
and Chris Pine.
No, not Pine.
No, not Chris Pine.
God, there's too many Chris's in Hollywood. Chris Evans.
Chris Evans.
Pine.
No,
Chris,
it's not Chris Evans. Hemsworth. Chris, it's not. any
Which
of
one
those.
is it?
I can't remember.
Star-Lord.
Pratt.
Thank
babe.
you.
So Chris Pratt and Anna Faris are having a picnic, and she's really into him pooping on her. And so he eats a bunch of burritos, and then he ends up getting hit by a car or something, and then the poop goes all over the windshield, and it's this is a real movie.
This is something that happened.
Oh, you're missing a skit involving 9-year-old Chloe Moretz talking about her period. That's the
another
greatest.
one.
That's true.
Yeah, it's
Or what about
phenomenal.
the cartoon cat?
Yeah, but
Oh
Yeah.
God, I
Oh,
completely
gosh.
erased that from my memory.
This
This
is all the same
movie.
movie.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
tho-
they ended up getting sued by a lot of people for false advertisement, and then
Because the trailer
but there was
was
nothing that you could
The trailer
do.
was not for that. It just showed all of these A-list actors, and their name just popped up on the screen. You know,
and it said like greatest comedy you'll ever see and stuff like
it
that.
was not.
It was garbage.
The next movie I didn't pay for. I actually had a coupon to go see like a free movie because I bought something, and it was the Emoji Movie. And I was like, I'm not gonna go pay for that. I'll just go check it out, see what it's like. And I walked out within 10 minutes. I couldn't even. If that was my job and I had to be there, then maybe I'd stay. But I was not gonna sit through that.
You'd
piece.
totally quit your job over that movie.
I would. And the next worst movie that I saw that it was. I was debating on whether or not putting on the disappointment list because I was actually looking forward to this movie, but it's actually Downsizing
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
with Matt Damon.
I was disappointed in that.
And
bore.
I kind of appreciated the first half of the movie. I thought it was cool because there was a lot of potential world building they could build because of like the little towns and the whatever. And then the last half of the movie took a completely different direction and it turned into some like preachy type deal about it was just
Pretentious.
The environment.
Completely
it was
pretentious.
awful to me and I almost walked out.
Oh, that's a great pick. Yeah, I think I had Downsizing on like my final 5. But then, yeah, it didn't make my cut. Movie
Ryan
40
loves that movie.
You love all the shitty movies.
Calling you out. All right, Chris, you go ahead.
Okay.
I love you, buddy.
I actually had 4 movies for this because I couldn't narrow it down
That's
to 3.
fine.
Nick already named one with movie 43, so I don't have to go into that anymore. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a movie called Escape from Tomorrow. It's from 2013. Yes, nobody in here probably knows what it's about.
I don't.
This guy took a camera to Disneyland and shot actual footage while a day in the life of the park is going on. And he makes this evil, you would actually appreciate this. It's an evil, basically a documentary about Disney and how evil of a corporation it is and how they turn everybody into mice and cats. And
Like literally?
Yeah, like literally.
Oh my gosh.
This movie not only has the worst acting that I've ever seen in my life, because I mean it's all amateur anyway.
Yeah.
It's a $65,000 budget for one thing. But it's just so hard to follow at times. At other times, there's no exposition. It's all over the place with its themes, and it's just completely bonkers. And the fact that this guy didn't get sued is what's impressive. I think Disney just figured nobody's going to watch this movie anyway, so why should we even bother with legal
attention to it.
fees? Yeah. So that's my third, and that was my worst film of 2013. The second film on my list is from 2014, Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas.
Oh god.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So to me, as a critic, I see everything. I don't discriminate when it comes to certain films here and there. Why I don't like Kirk Cameron's films is because it makes religious people look really bad by comparison. I mean, the theme of this movie is basically that the first half is presents don't make a Christmas. Material things aren't important. Family is important. And then
It's the most predictable message ever.
the most predictable message ever, for sure. Most mundane, for sure. But in the second half of the movie, they contradict themselves, and it becomes all about those very same presents. It also has a bodybuilder playing Santa, and he ends up slaying a bunch of goats midway through one of the skits. It really is the craziest thing you've ever seen. Get a couple drinks together and watch it with some friends. That's the only reason to see it. Kirk Cameron has started selling coffee because of it afterwards. It's called his Saving Christmas Nut Roast.
No.
Yeah, so...
Nice.
But it's not about the presents.
But it's not about the
Or
presents
the merch.
or the material things.
No, okay.
Yeah. So, just do with that what you will. The final movie on my list, God, there was never going to be another pick than this. This is the worst movie of the decade, and that is Kevin Smith's Yoga Hosers.
Oh yeah.
Yoga hose?
This movie is awful.
It's part of that trilogy, right?
Yeah, it's part of Tusk, Yoga Hosers, and the third one, I think they released it, but it wasn't to theaters.
It's a trilogy though.
Yeah,
Does Yoga Hosers have
know
like
Tusk.
the miniature? Is it like?
Yeah, the miniature kind of like goblins, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are, but it's horrible. Johnny Depp giving his Inspector Clouseau impression that he did from Tusk, just as annoying this time, because this time you have to spend 2 hours with it as opposed to the few spare instances you did in Tusk. This movie's terrible. This movie is not only is it an awful movie all around, it should have ended Kevin Smith's career. And the fact that he's still making movies is insulting to me and the rest of his audience that enjoyed Clerks, Mallrats, all the classics.
Yeah.
Awful film altogether, and I suggest you watch it.
So I got an honorable mention from the audience. Ken actually messaged me on this. Ken used to run the Cleveland Cinema Movie Festival.
Yeah.
He was that guy. He was in charge of all that. The Wall.
Oh.
He hates as far as one of the most disappointing of the decade, and like just not good.
That's Matt Damon in it, right?
Yes, and it's so and William Dafoe too, right?
Yeah.
And it's completely forced, and it's like, and it retells the story of the Great Wall of China.
That was when he was playing an Asian, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had those CGI arrows with all the different colors.
Iguana thingamajigs.
Yeah.
Just
I
a
don't know if
bad.
you'd call that a disappointment because nobody in their right mind thought that was going to
Well,
be good.
just
I call it more of a guilty pleasure that I would stop watching after 30 minutes.
and you guys use that term, a mindless popcorn movie.
Mindless popcorn.
It wasn't
entertainment.
even that
No.
really. It was just bad.
Nice
Yeah,
color
that's
scheme.
just
That was
bad.
about it.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. I'm going to tear open an old wound from Adam Sandler. Jack and Jill is my first.
Oh.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, I hate
and
that.
this is coming from someone that has seen almost every single thing that Adam Sandler has done. I look forward to Uncut Gems, but when he's given great material, he can do really good material. When he's given the worst material, he can give some of the worst comedies.
Yeah,
and I think Jack and Jill is the worst comedy I've seen, even worse than Movie 43. I'm gonna say that right now.
Ooh.
Yes, because I think that. I think Movie 43 is a bit more distasteful, but in terms of how at least Movie 43 actually got a few giggles out of me, Jack and Jill got nothing out of me. I was just annoyed for 90 minutes. Just constant annoyance.
It is Sandler's worst, in my opinion, for sure.
All right, I'm gonna. The worst horror movie that I've seen in the past decade was The Bye Bye Man, with the worst acting I have ever seen at least in a theatrical film. I despise this film. It is not scary. It is not creepy. It is unintentionally hilarious at times. So it could be a movie that's so bad it's good. But I saw that with a friend of mine, and we were just talking shit about it for the entire runtime.
How awesome that another terrible horror movie is set in Ohio.
Yeah.
Beautiful, huh?
Yes, this is true. And the last one, which I don't even know if any of them can say that they've seen, is Norm of the North.
I have
yes,
seen it.
yes. And it is the worst animated movie I've ever seen in my entire life. It has a fucking twerking polar bear.
Whoa!
And the whole message of like, hey, we're gonna sell houses in the Arctic because that's prime real estate. What the hell are you talking about? This is such a dumbass movie, even for kids. I wouldn't let a toddler watch this. This is so freaking stupid. I hate it. I can't believe I paid money to see it.
He was staring at me, Daddy. He was angry.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm done.
Great picks.
Nicholas?
Oh, I already gave mine.
Yeah,
Oh.
you did. We're done.
We're done. Bye, guys.
But yeah, I think that does wrap it up though for the show. We did talk about all the movies that we were excited to see. If we could just do one more thing as we run down the table, just do like your most anticipated movie of 2020, and then we will wrap up the show.
Wow.
I think as of right now, I mean, it's a lot to think about. I'm gonna I'll have to split it up between Black Widow and Wonder Woman.
He's going to pick mine, so go ahead.
I'm going to pick yours?
Yeah.
What's yours?
Go ahead.
I haven't even thought about it. Now I'm on the spot.
So I'll go ahead then. My most anticipated is Mulan.
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's mine. Mulan looks so good.
It does look good, and it does have any music or any Mushu in it. It's a completely.
I know, I'm a little disappointed by that.
I'm fine
If
with
you have somebody that's a witch that can turn into a falcon, you can put a dragon in there, but
And Nick brought that awareness to me. I was like, yeah, you know what? You can include Mushu in this. I didn't care about Mushu at first, and the music bothers me. But now, yeah, you kind of should include Mushu with it.
it's still going to be amazing, though.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my most anticipated movies, and I think you're going to appreciate that. Is and I hope it does keep its release in December. Is Dune?
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that.
Denis Villeneuve.
Freaking love the original Dune, even though it hasn't really aged all that well. But I think that is in the hands of the most capable director possible.
Tenet.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Tenet. Yes. Screw Wonder Woman. Tenet.
Go.
All I had to do was look into his eyes. He knew. He gave me the freaking Christopher Nolan eyes. Yeah, man.
You okay over there?
Those are Christopher Nolan eyes.
Let's go.
How could I do my Lord and Savior so wrong?
Father, forgive him. He knows
Get
not
off
what he
the
does.
show now.
It's my fucking show. You get the fuck off.
But yeah, Dune is my one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Tenet's definitely up there too.
Tenet.
But yeah, I think we're done here.
Fantastic.
So on that note, great 2020. Lots of movies coming up. Thank you again to the Rialto Theater for hosting us. Beautiful. It's a beautiful space.
Thank you all for coming.
Come check them out on Facebook. They have a lot of upcoming events, a lot of stuff going on here. They got an ugly sweater, something going on tonight. This place is always packed. It's a really good space. So come on down, show it some love, show this neighborhood some love. And we will catch you guys next time on the next show. Thank you again for watching.
See you next year.
We're all supposed to do something with our hands.
Oh yeah, happy holidays. Whatever you
To all of you.
celebrate.
And to
Happy
all a
cold
good
winter.
night.
I'm not getting boxed into that hole.
This podcast is a copyright of Moon Garden Media Limited.
Oh, this a lot of peanut butter.